And welcome. This is Kazam, and I am bringing you a product tutorial for the Aviatrix Phase 2 product set. I say product set, there are several garments that go with this. First of all, we have an update to the cutoffs from Aviatrix Phase 1. I wanted to improve them. I had to. So I went ahead and included those. Phase 2 originally was going to be these hot pants, the bomber jacket, and perhaps some kind of flight boot things. And I opted instead of the flight boots to update the cutoffs. Probably the flight boots will be introduced, say, in Phase 2A or something. So what I have here is a 3-part video series on Aviatrix Phase 2. The third one is actually going to be a sneak peek at Aviatrix Phase 3. And I forgot to start my stopwatch there. I'm trying to discipline myself. This is like the third or fourth time I've tried to make this video. And I only just now got the sound issues worked out to where they're pretty reasonable. This is a new set of headphones, headset. So, and I'm not happy with it already. So probably before this week's out, I'm going to go ahead and get myself a halfway decent quality microphone. The headphones are okay. This is a Skull Candy. It's not a very expensive one. But the microphone is built into one of the headsets. And so I have to wear them around my neck when I'm recording in order to get the microphone close enough to actually pick up my voice without picking up a lot of room noise. Hopefully that's working out. I did some tests. It should. At any rate, back to this. We're going to do 30 minutes on the cutoffs alone. And the reason for that is there are some things about how to deal with the strand-based hair that are useful not only for these cutoffs, but for any time you deal with strand-based hair. I'm also going to show you how to save a strand-based hair wearable preset. It's going to be for the cutoffs, but the lesson applies equally to anything you decide to add strand-based hair to, any clothing item for sure, or anything that is a wearable preset. And that's how you have to save strand-based hair. It says a wearable preset, okay, whether it's body hair or whatever it might be. You have to save it as a wearable preset, and there are a couple of things to keep in mind. So with all of that being said, let's launch on into the cutoffs. Now you'll notice here we have a wardrobe item. That's the cutoffs themselves. You're probably never going to really just use that, but you have to have one so that you can save a wearable preset. You have to have the garment in there. So it's in there, and if you decide you want to use it without the threads, you can. 2 wearables, one with no buttons, one with buttons. I recommend that you load the one with buttons because you can just hide the buttons and run your simulation, do whatever you're going to do, and then bring them back and adjust them. So here's what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about materials, okay, and how you can change the color to anything you want. Then we're going to talk about the buttons and how to adjust them with the fly after you've run your simulation. And then we're going to talk about the strand-based hair. That is the topic that is going to probably take the longest. I'm sure it'll take the longest. So let's dive into it. Okay, let's go to our iRay materials. This is the default material, which is new denim cutoffs. I'm not crazy about this one, but it really helps if you load it this way, it really helps in getting things tweaked the way you want in terms of your D-force and your adjustments, and then you change it to whatever other preset or color you want. Let me demonstrate what I mean by that. Cutoffs G8, right there. Let's load the Christmas denim cutoffs. All right. And now let's go to surfaces. And if you look here, you have red. The question mark is because I have a slightly different brightness to the waistband, the fly, and the central seam. That's not important for the purposes of this tutorial. Here's what's important. You can change it to any color you want. So let's go to this kind of a teal color here. And there you have a teal color. You can see that there is no image on the base color. Okay. We have a diffuse overlay, a diffuse roughness, a metallicity, and all you have to add to that is a color. So it can be any color you want. Let's go to NVIDIA iRay preview mode, and you'll get a better sense of what I'm talking about. So there you have it. And you can save this as a material preset. Okay, I am going to walk you through that one time real quickly because this is also a D-Force item. And when you save a material preset, some people don't realize that D-Force is a material property. You want to make sure that that is unselected when you save it. So here's how we do that. The easy way to do that, File, Save As, Material Preset. Okay, we're going to go to our iRay materials. We're going to call this teal, just for the purposes of this tutorial. Save, and now here's where you want to be careful. All right, you want to hit this menu item, check only, check all non-simulation settings. Okay, you can see that simulation is unchecked. You don't want to save your simulation with a texture or a material preset, because then if you decide you want to use that color material later and you have made some changes to the D-Force surfaces to tweak it for your particular character, those are all going to go away and leave you with this. So let's save it without those simulation settings. Okay, now let's do the reverse. Let's say that you have tweaked these D-Force settings and you have them the way you want them for your character. I'm going to show you how you save that by itself without the colors or textures or anything else. It's going to be a File, Save As, once again, Materials Preset, because D-Force is a materials property in DAZ. Go to your D-Force preset, and we're just going to call this Tutorial Physics. And we're going to save. Again, be careful, go here, check only, check all simulation settings only. Hit that. You can see that only simulation is saved. Okay, so you want to make sure you keep those two things separate. That's if you're fairly new to D-Force and we're dealing with something like a clothing item, that's going to be a very important thing for you to understand. So there is the materials part of this. All right, you can change the colors to any of my presets here, or you can make your own color, as I said, right here in your base color slider. Change it and then save the color if you like it. And if you make D-Force adjustments to suit yourself, make sure that you save those as a separate material preset. Moving on, let's get to the buttons. We're going to go to texture shaded. All right. These buttons are separate objects from the cutoffs, and they are parented to these rigid follow nodes. All right, these little I-beam symbols are rigid follow nodes. There the buttons are hidden, and I'm going to go ahead and hide the rigid follow nodes too, and probably leave them that way, just because that 3-color axis marker can be a little bit distracting. So here we go. I'm going to change this because I want to stay in texture mode for just a bit while we're dealing with the buttons, and that will show up better in texture mode. Take a look, you'll notice there's a little bit of spacing here. When I was developing these, it just turned out that pre-simulation, it's better to have it this way. And then after you run your simulation, I have some morphs that will take care of that. This all has to do with buttons, by the way, as you'll see. We have our various morphs, but the one that I want to call your attention to right now is the fly open. See that? It has a small negative value of -10, I think. Let's go ahead and run the simulation so that you can see how that works out. I'm going to simulate. And this is a standard A pose. It's not going to take long, but it's going to serve the purpose of, the purpose that it needs to, which is to show you how this works. And something I forgot to do, cancel that. The reason things aren't changing so fast, because I forgot to hide the cutoff threads. Those will ride out a simulation on this product, but it'll slow the simulation down for one thing, and for another thing, you won't get a proper result. So hide it, then run your simulation. So you want to hide each of the buttons, and your cutoff threads before you run your sim. So now here we go. Finish simulating. I want you to take note that I'm at pose transition time of 1, which is default stabilization time of 1 frames per second multiplier. You probably want to at least change your stabilization time up to a 2 or a 3, okay? And it gives it time to really do its thing correctly. That is not poke through right there, by the way. You're seeing a buttonhole. As you can see, when you turn it, it shows the back of the gene. Now, we are going to go to those morphs. Here we go. We're going to dial in that negative value. Up here, we have something hanging in the breeze. That is your fly top fold. Dial that up. Dial it up a little bit more. Okay. You can also bring that fold in, which we'll do. And there you have it. Now it's correct. So that's how you tidy things up after you run a simulation. All right, we'll bring our buttons back. Let's do the top one, middle, and bottom. As you can see, they're not quite aligned right. That's just the nature of the beast. When you're using a separate object that does not have a d-force modifier, and it's on a rigid follow node, when you run a simulation, they're going to get a little bit out of kilter. Easy to fix. Okay, we just go to our universal tool right here. Okay, select your button, and now you have a way of manipulating this. I have seen people on YouTube, when they make this sort of a thing, actually go to the trouble of rigging it with a bone or two. In my opinion and in my experience, that is utterly and completely unnecessary. It's just a layer of complexity that you don't need. Use the universal tool and just adjust it like that. Let's take this one and adjust it really quickly. We'll twist it around like so, unless you want to leave it crooked. It's up to the look you want. Okay, and then we're going to take this and move it back like so. There you have it. And same thing for the bottom button. Okay, that's pretty much where we need it to be, but we're going to adjust it just a tiny bit more, like so. Now, if you adjust that, like I've done this one, in fact, let's take it all the way back in. You can see there's some overlap there. You can see that the denim intrudes slightly on the bottom of this button. So there's a morph to take care of that. All right, and that's what we're going to go to right now. We're going to go to our buttonhole morphs. We have 9 altogether, 3 for the bottom, 3 for the middle, and 3 for the top. Okay, and they're all the same. You have an up down. Okay, you have an in out, and you have a side to side. So you can use that to adjust things as you need to after you run your simulation. In this case, I think we want to go in out. So let's go ahead and move that in, and there we go. That takes care of that. All right, this one's not quite right. You can tweak it however you need to for your given situation. Right now I'm just kind of blasting through this because it's such a simple topic, and it does demonstrate to you that you can adjust those very, very quickly. Okay, that's it for the buttons. I'm going to go ahead and hide those again. They don't really need to be, they don't really need to be there for this. Hide that top button, get rid of our universal tool. Let's bring in our cutoff threads. First thing I want you to take note of, these cutoff threads are unparented from the cutoffs. Okay? That is going to become very, very important in a few minutes when I start showing you how to save your own preset. For now, what I want you to understand is that even though it's unparented, it will faithfully follow through everything. Okay? You don't have to worry about that. It will faithfully follow through. And I will demonstrate that to you. Let's just do an X translate of like 1500 on our character. Now let's frame select, and you can see they followed. Okay? And that applies to shape and pose as well as translation, rotation, and all that stuff. So we'll put her back where she belongs. And back. Again, it's been followed. Now, excuse me. If you were to parent this to the cutoffs and then start working translations, chances are it's not going to follow correctly. So leave it unparented, okay? Let's get into the strand-based hair. I'm going to show you how to make changes so that you can create your own presets. This is a fully editable strand-based hair, and this parenting, unparenting thing is going to become crucial to you at that point. That's why I showed it to you just now. Cutoff thread selected, edit, object, edit strand-based hair. Okay, first thing you want to do, this is true of all strand-based, not just this product. Update surfaces. You can see the surfaces change position. What this does is tell the strand-based hair to grow from these surfaces in their current state, not the default state. All right, now this is a rather complex set of surfaces, as you can see, for strand-based hair. A result of that with any complex surface is that when you go to style, show your style curves, you can see some of them have gotten off the reservation. Okay, that's going to happen first time and first time only. Every time you tell it to update surfaces, in fact, it will do that. So just make sure you have your model in the pose that you want and run your simulation, then update surfaces. And you won't have to keep fooling with this. You just only have to do it once. And you just go ahead and trim out the ones that are too long. Just like that with your scissor tool right here. So let me quit fooling around there. Let's do that. There we go. Garibaldi interface is a little bit awkward. Okay, so we've got most of that trimmed down. I'm not going to get real persnickety about it because this is a tutorial, and you can get as persnickety about this as you want to be. Once you get the product and start doing your own presets, you can be just as particular about this as you want to be. One piece of advice I do have for you is on this product, particularly if your model is going to be in like a sitting pose, you want to go through and trim this out. Okay, why do you want to do that? Well, strand-based hair is not a mesh object. You can export it as an OBJ file, as a wavefront file, and re-import it, but that is really not a good way to do it, in my opinion. You run into all kinds of problems if you do that. Plus, you make your the size of your file and everything pretty unwieldy. Strand-based hair, once you learn how to tame it, so to speak, is actually pretty handy and works pretty well. It just has this awkward interface and it has its weirdnesses. Okay, so there we go. We've trimmed that out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the style a little bit. Let's go to this tool, which is a length tool. I want to show you. This is the best way to handle length. Okay, there are a couple of other places you can do that, but I think, in my opinion, that's the easiest way. The other way is if you go to distribute and you can adjust the length there. That's probably the least effective, believe it or not. If you go to tweak, you can come up here and do a reduce length, and that's also quite effective. But I think that using the style, this tool right here, which is extend curves, I think that's probably your most effective way to do it. And not only because it gives you the best result, or the most efficient result for your effort, but also because you can select just certain parts of this. Okay, now the crotch is going to get really furry, wild, and woolly. Okay, and what we're going to want to do, and I already know this from experience, so I'll just show you, is we're going to want to shorten this part, but not the rest. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Now that we have that part selected, we can just click and drag to the left, bring that down, and there you go. We have it. Looks like we might want to trim this too, so I'm going to take and do that. Then I'm going to do this little extra trimming that I didn't see from those other angles. Looks like we got something here on the front too, maybe, yeah, right in here. Let's go ahead and trim that off. Okay, and remember, you're only going to have to worry about that trimming because this is a complex surface. You're only going to have to worry about it if you tell it to update surfaces. Okay, so if you've got yourself in the pose and everything that you want, you shouldn't have to do that again, but you may. I just want to make you aware of that, you know, it's just a weirdness of strand-based hair with complex surfaces. Okay, let's make this whole thing, let's give it a lot different look than it has. Okay, I'm going to take this surface attraction and dial that back. All right, then I'm going to go into tweak, and here are some things we can fool with here. Random root angle. Okay, we can fool with that. That'll give it a little bit more of a, a varied, kind of a look. I'm not sure if we made that too short or not. We'll see here in a minute. Actually, let's go back to style and let's see. Let's go ahead and select that. By the way, right now is a pretty good time to show you about these curve selection sets right here. When you're selecting, if you hold down Control, you add to the selection. If you hold down Alt, you subtract from the selection. Okay, and if you don't have anything selected, it just restarts your selection to what you had. Okay, so let's go ahead and reselect this crotch area. All right, we're going to just call that the crotch area. And then we are going to make a new curve selection. When you save your own presets, you're probably going to want to do this. This is a fairly simple item, so I didn't bother with it. But you can do this for yourself. We'll just call this crotch. Okay. Now, if we hit sub, it deselects crotch. If we hit add, it selects the crotch. Subtract and add, meaning subtract and add to what you may already have selected. That's the logic of their language there. Okay. So anyway, you can always go back in and take that and go in and let's grow it out a little bit, because I think it did probably get too short over there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. At any rate, let's go ahead and I've shown you the random root angle. I've shown you frizz. Let me show you frizz. Frizz gives you it really affects things a lot if you use it on the tip. The base as well, but on the tip in particular. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit accept. And now we've got something that looks kind of wild and woolly, right? And also we have worn down these center threads in the crotch the way they would be, say, in real life. All right. Now you can zoom in on this and you can see that things look kind of kinky. All right. They don't look very smooth. What we're going to do about that, edit, object, geometry, convert to sub D. You're saying, if you're new to strand-based hair, Kazam, why didn't you save it that way? I'll tell you why. Every time you edit strand-based hair, it will kick that sub D off. You have to re-add it. So if we go in and edit this again to change the look, that's all well and good. But what's going to happen is our subdivision surface modifier will be kicked off. Now it'll save this number here, but the modifier itself, it kicks off. So you have to go back in and re-add it. Okay. Another thing we can do in terms of making this look smoother is we're going to go ahead and add a smoothing modifier. Okay. Now I did not add this by default because in some situations that'll kind of cause the mesh to go a little bit crazy. And I'll show you how to fix that if it pops up here. Okay, let's make the collision item our Genesis 8 female, and there we go. Now let's take a look at this in NVIDIA iRay, and this is 4.14. The iRay preview mode, in my opinion, takes longer to process. Once it's processed, it performs very well. But I think it takes a little bit longer than 4.12 to initially process. At any rate, here we go. Now we have a subdivision surface modifier on here. We have a collision item set for our character. You can see in some places it does some kind of strange things. Okay, that's something you want to be careful of and just be aware of. It's strand-based hair. That's life with strand-based hair. Okay, you just have to kind of deal with it. I'm sure that Daz will be working to improve certain things and get rid of various little, I don't know if you call it a problem, but I'm about to show you what I was talking about with the parenting, why that was so important. Because let's imagine that this is a preset that you've made for your character with these shorts, with the strand-based hair, and you want to save it. You want to always be able to just load that instead of having to go in and recreate it. That's actually easy to do, but you want to be very careful about something. First of all, you're going to reparent it once you're ready to save this, okay? And only then. You want to go ahead and reparent it. I'm going to collapse those, all right? And right here under wearable, you can see this unparent onload. You want to turn that on, O-N, on. Otherwise, it'll be screwed up, okay? And you won't be able to get it to go back and be the same way. All right, so just make sure that you have that unparent onload turned on. Now you want to select your character, which I just did, and do a file, save as, wearables preset. All right, and we're going to call this tutorial wearable. Right there. All right, unclick those things because all we're interested in, because you're saving a preset for this garment only, all we're interested in are the cutoffs, the buttons, and the cutoff threads. Your Genesis 8 female is selected, or it would give you a weird set of other things. Boom, there we go, right? So now, because we have a lot of confidence in what we've just done, I'm going to go ahead and delete these. Select our figure again. Go over here to the content library, okay? And there's our tutorial wearable. Let's refresh that. Actually, that was from the last time I attempted to make this video and the sound wasn't right. But there is our tutorial wearable. Okay, excuse me. You can see that it does load up, and you can see that the cutoff threads have unparented themselves now automatically. And that is what you want. Remember, it won't correctly follow the garment unless it is unparented. And Daz knows that. That's why they have this setting there in the first place. So now you have a preset. You have a preset. And you can go through and make as many different presets as you want and give yourself a lot of different looks for this. Let me just go over one or two things that you can do, since I have about 3.5 minutes left here for my budgeted time. It's time that I've budgeted myself to get through this. We're going to edit our strand-based hair again. And just so you know, when you loaded that, you saw that there was no sub D on it, right? Now, we're not going to update surfaces because I don't want to go through the trimming thing again because we've just reloaded this and yada, yada, yada. We're just going to accept this as is because what's important to show you right now is you have some options for your hair density. That's how many hairs, okay? Width, very, very, very important, all right? Everything from peach fuzz up to leaning towers of Pisa you can make with this. All right, it's just how high you make these numbers. But if you want big fat hairs on the bottom, thin on top, that's pretty much your setting right there. You can change that if you want. All right. We can have show hairs and show hair color. That really depends on your video subsystem. If it's not powerful enough, it won't give you those options. All right. But the strand-based hair will behave the same way. You just won't be able to preview it as well without a pretty decent video card. So style, again, there you go. You can see that we have our crotch. As I promised you, we can add that. And there it is. And you can add as many different selection sets as you want. We have some various tools here. We can comb. And it's only going to affect the area that you have selected. See? So we'll just go ahead and do this. We'll just comb that all straight down just for grins. Okay. Clump is something that, I've got set pretty well for this. You can change it if you want to. I would recommend not fooling with that, but by all means, experiment if you really want to. And here's our tweak, okay, which we're not going to fool with again. Let's just accept that. Okay. And what should happen is you should see the crotch hairs, or the crotch threads, being more straight down, okay, which they kind of are. All right, they kind of are. I didn't take a lot of time with that, and you can futz with that all you want. But another important point here is that because you've loaded it, you would have had to reapply the sub D, and certainly because we've edited it, we're going to have to reapply the sub D. So we're going to do that right now. Edit. Just get into the habit of doing this when you're dealing with strand-based hair. Okay, if you want sub D, just get into this habit. Edit, object, uh, geometry, convert to sub-D. Okay, and then we'll go to our mesh resolution and see it did save these values for us. It just didn't allow them to apply to anything. Weird, just very weird. It's life with this product, strand-based hair. Our smoothing modifier is there, but our collision probably is not. Yes, it is. There it is, because we saved it as a wearable preset. So it will save that smoothing modifier, okay, and it will save your collision. So there you go. That's how you would make yourself a preset, all right? And then you can re-show the buttons and do what you need to do. Just remember about the parenting issue, okay? That's the end of part 1. That is the cutoffs. That was about 30 minutes. Go ahead and take a break. And I'm going to take a break too. And we'll come back and take a look at part 2, which is going to be the hot pants and the bomber jacket. Okay? So this is Kazam, and I will see you very, very shortly.